Is today the day where quantitative tightening ends and crypto starts to pump? In today's video, we'll be discussing exactly that. We'll be going over the upcoming FOMC meeting, and we'll also be going over the most important charts in terms of how to navigate this market. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Let's jump right into the video. Today is the biggest FOMC meeting of our lives until the next one. Are we going to pump or are we going to dump? If we take a look at the Bitcoin chart now, what we can see is that yesterday we came all the way down to the low $81,000 level, holding it as support. And now we are right on our way to rally up until the 200-day moving average, which is one of the most crucial levels that we need to flip. Now, we have seen a lot of volatility historically with the FOMC meetings, so you should be expecting this in both directions. I think that both longs and shorts will get wrecked. So if you are trading this market, make sure you do have tight stop losses and clear invalidations, because otherwise you could get wrecked. And that reminds me, if you want to trade this volatility, make sure to click the first link in my description down below. It brings you directly to Weeks, which is the exchange that I use to place all my trades. You can even get a 50% deposit bonus, which means that if you are to deposit $2,000 to your Weeks account, you get $1,000 back for trading purposes. It's the first link in my description down below. You also only need an email and a password to sign up. Now, if we zoom out a little bit and take a look at the Bitcoin chart on the daily time frame, what we can see here is that we are still below the key level, as it's been the theme in many of my videos. These conditions over here are the conditions for me to be bullish again, and right now we are working on the first one. Will Jerome Powell be a little bit more positive and be able to fuel the markets higher? Now, in terms of what we should be expecting, first of all, this is based on a betting market, poly market, and the Fed is expected to end QT before May. At this meeting today, though, interest rates will most likely stay unchanged, and what we really want to pay attention to is if Jerome Powell is hawkish or dovish. Will he hint at QT coming to an end sooner rather than later? The betting markets have it as a 100% odds before May. And as we can see here, the consensus is at 99% that the interest rates will not change during this meeting. Some people are willing to take that bet and bet against this, but I would honestly just follow the consensus because most of the time they are right. It's more about how Jerome Powell addresses the market and how he actually speaks at this FOMC meeting. Pay attention. Now, a lot of you have been asking me where I would consider longing Bitcoin, and these are the only two key levels that I would consider. This is exactly what Fola said, and I couldn't agree more. These are the levels on the chart that we've been observing on the channel for months now, and this is exactly where I'm looking to long. Either we break above here and hold the range as support, then we can go ahead and place a long, or if we come back down and retest the previous year's high. And don't believe me, we can see that I have all of these lines outlined on the chart. This is the same chart that we've been going over every single video. Basically, we want to get all the way back above here, above 91.8K, hold it as support, or if we come back and retest the lows, which is what I have been favoring around 73K, that is when I would consider a long. Until then, especially today, I'm not actually trading the markets. I know there's going to be a lot of volatility, and volatility does mean opportunity. But for now, seeing as we've secured some very nice gains over the past few months, I want to make sure that I'm playing this smart and I'm not rushing into any trades. Now, looking at Ethereum, today we have pumped from 1870 all the way up to above $2,000. So what is happening here? Is it finally time for Ethereum to pump much higher, or is this just going to be a lower high? This is, of course, on the 1 hour time frame. If I look at the daily chart, I wouldn't say it's super positive quite yet. The next level that we'd want to retest here is around the $2,100 level. If we can hold this level as support, I would become increasingly more bullish on Ethereum. Despite, as you may know, me expecting some lower levels so I can accumulate hopefully below the $1,600 range. I still think that this can definitely play out, especially if Bitcoin decides to head lower before it moves higher and puts in a new all-time high. Bitcoin dominance, it's very much the same story. We continue to increase ahead of this FOMC meeting as well, and we can see that on the day we are currently red, but this is very much still an uptrend, and this uptrend is very much still intact. As I've been saying, I still think we'll fill this wick. Only time will tell, but it has everything to do with quantitative tightening. So let's see if we get any hints at this FOMC meeting, which is just in a few hours from now. Looking at the liquidation heat maps, one thing that's interesting is that on the 48-hour time frame, we can see that there's a lot of liquidity right below the 81K level. So when we were here and we made these higher lows around 81.2K, a lot of people decided to long Bitcoin with their invalidations below this level. There's quite a bit of liquidity here, so it wouldn't surprise me if we do tap into this liquidity today. Yes, that can sound surprising because right now Bitcoin is at $84,000, ready to test this key level. I don't think that these longers will get away with it, but also in the long term, I also don't think that everyone that's been shorting Bitcoin from the highs will get away with it. We will tap into all of this liquidity at some point. In the short term, make sure you're careful whether you're longing or shorting Bitcoin because the market is out to get you. And two last things before I wrap up this quick video. First of all, we have Radium to launch their own version of Pump Fund called Launch Lab. A little late, don't you think? I mean, we saw that Radium absolutely nuked when Pump Fund essentially announced that they were going to be using their own aggregator. And so this is something that I think is a very poor business move, to be honest, because we're also seeing that the Pump Fund revenues continue to decrease as we went over in several of my other videos. So, but I guess if you zoom out and really look at the long term, perhaps this isn't such a bad thing to do for their own business, but only time will tell how their token will actually perform, because this was a pretty devastating crash from $8 all the way down to 1.8. And lastly, something to put things into perspective, this year has really not been that bad for Bitcoin holders. The fact is, and we've talked about this a lot, many people don't solely hold Bitcoin and are down tremendously on their alts or have traded themselves into a deeper hole. That's the nature of this market during bad times, sadly. The best you can do is staying disciplined and being patient. Also, think about your long-term holds very well so you at least have conviction in them when times are tough. ETH has seen its worst quarter in 2.5 years and its worst Q1 since 2018. If you want your alts to do well, you do need ETH to do well, which is why I brought up the ETH chart, because this is starting to look like some serious pumpage. Let's see if we can reclaim around 2100 before we could potentially move higher. Personally, I think that we could see lower valuations for Ethereum, but I think its comeback is inevitable. And the last thing that I want to go over, the spot Bitcoin ETFs, we can see that we're starting to see more and more inflows. You know, over here we talked about how we saw $13 million in inflows after a ton of outflows. And now we're starting to see several hundreds of millions of dollars of inflows, which is a positive sign that retail is potentially coming back in the market. And that sums up today's video. We have the FOMC meeting in a few hours. Interest rates are likely to stay the same, but we'll just have to assess whether Jerome Powell is hawkish or dovish, and potentially he will give us a hint as to when QT could be ending. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.